Yo, 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 welcome back to Son of a Preacher Man. Soapman is in the house. So we've been talking about the sons of God pretty much for the last 3, 4, 5 episodes. And so for some of you hardcore Christians and believers, it may be confusing to you how the sons of God went from being perfect men to being the scum of the earth and the reason why God sent the flood. But here's why I think that shouldn't surprise you. Do you remember the story of Eli? It's an Old Testament story about a high priest named Eli. And Eli, for the most part, was a good man. He believed in God, he had a close relationship with God, and he performed his priestly duties, without complication, without error, without any problems. But Eli had two wicked sons that he happened to love very much. Eli was getting complaints that his sons were corrupt, that they were stealing from the citizens, from the people who came to the tabernacle to worship. They were stealing food from them, taking portions that they weren't supposed to take, and that they were greedy. It seems that Eli's sons were not as pious and virtuous as Eli would have liked them to be. They were not the spitting image, so to speak, of their old man. Anyway, it doesn't say that they were sleeping with people, but if they were stealing and they probably was sleeping with a lot of the women, they were just corrupt all around. So Eli really didn't know what to do about his sons because he knew that they were corrupt, but he knew that he loved them so much that he did not have it in him to correct them. Eli also knew that this was going to be a problem and put a rift between he and the God he worshiped relationship. So what was Eli to do regarding his son? He had taught them better. Eli was a high priest, a pious man, a staunch believer in God. He performed his duties without question or criticism. Eli's only flaw was his love for his sons, because what his sons were doing were in contrast to God's law. And so that reflected upon Eli. But Eli loved his boys, and so he did nothing. What was Eli to do? Well, let me tell you what Eli did. He didn't do anything. He did nothing. I'm pretty sure Eli said to his sons, look, fellas, I've been hearing stuff, you better stop it. Hey, or, I'm sure he pulled them to the side and say, I am hitting over and over about your corruption and it must stop. But he did not snatch them up by their coattail or snatch them up by the ear. He didn't get one of his younger siblings to rough them up. He didn't condemn them through the law. He did not punish them as he would have if it was anybody else other than his sons. And so he did nothing. Along comes a young prophet named Samuel. And when I say young, I mean a child. And he is called to be a prophet from childhood. And he tells Eli, the Lord is going to punish you for the action of your kids. And he tells Eli, because you let this corruption fester and go on for so long and either couldn't or wouldn't do anything about it, you and your sons will perish on the same day. Samuel tells Eli that him and his sons will die on the same day and that it is of God. And that's exactly what happens. The Israelites get into a war with the Philistines, and the sons of Eli die protecting the Ark of the Covenant. And when Eli hears the news, when a messenger from the battle, a runner, a scout, returns to the Israelite camp and tells the news of the Israelite defeat at the hands of the Philistines, and includes the deaths of Eli's sons. When Eli learns that his two boys that he loved so much that he could not reprimand them or correct them or chastise them or discipline them to God's satisfaction. When Eli hears the news of his two sons being killed at the battle, he falls backwards out of his seat and breaks his neck and dies, so fulfilling what God had spoken to the young child Samuel, that Eli and his sons would all be wiped out on the same day. The story of Eli's sons is a story that's been told over and over and over throughout history, not just in the Bible and in the history of the Jewish people, but in history all over the world. But just speaking on the Bible specifically, remember the children of King David and how wild they was fighting over the throne? David's son Absalom took revenge on his brother. I think his name was Adonijah. And Absalom threw a party and invited Adonijah to the party, where he subsequently had him murdered. Absalom went on to rebel against his father and try to usurp the throne. And he had many conspirators who were at one time very close to his father, King David. Many of David's close personal friends and advisors betrayed him in favor of his son Absalom, who was said to have been very beautiful and had perfect hair. And it was that perfect, beautiful, unblemished hair that caused his demise. You see, in a battle against David's forces, Absalom got that beautiful hair caught in the low-hanging boughs of a tree, where it left him suspended and vulnerable. Joab, who heard of Absalom's compromised state, took advantage, ran to the scene, and planted 3 darts in Absalom's heart before cutting him down from the tree and having his men beat Absalom to death. Even King Solomon, who succeeded his father to the throne, had his brothers killed. It might have been Adonijah that King Solomon had killed. I forgot. I may be getting the names mixed up. My point is this. And Solomon also had David's nephew Joab killed. And that's my whole point. It was mass murder and confusion going on when David's reign came to an end. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. This incident with the sons of God, we're going to see it repeated over and over and over again throughout history, where you have these privileged children of people in high places in society, people with high status, and the corruption of their privileged kids. It's a common theme throughout history and human nature. A lot of you may be wondering, how did sin creep into the picture? How was it that these perfect men, Josephus says they were perfect men for 7 generations. How did sin creep into the picture? How did they allow themselves, when they were so holy and righteous before, how did they allow themselves to be corrupted? How did sin creep into the picture? The answer is, it was always there. Remember the original sin of Adam? What got them kicked out of the Garden of Eden in the first place was sin. And for those of you who think to yourself that the devil was the serpent who deceived them into committing this sin, you're just wrong. The sin was always there with Adam. It was always at the door, like God told Cain. He says, if you just do right, then you'll prosper. But if you do not do right, know that sin is at the door. So folks, sin was always at the door with Adam and his descendants, because Adam was not some perfect magical being that God wistfully created in 24 hours out of dust and clay. That kind of magical thinking is how children reason. But for grown adults, you apply what scripture says to the science you know, to the things that you know to be true. You don't take facts, hardcore proven facts and evidence, and throw it out the window and accept fantasy magical thinking as fact in place of what is proven to be true. No, when you apply scripture to real life, the natural laws of nature always apply. They do not change. So Adam was a man. He behaved like men do. Sin was always at the door. He was always capable or susceptible to errors, to mistakes, to temptation. So we've been talking about the sons of God. We talked about the three sources that describe this event that happened involving the sons of God: the Bible, the Antiquities of the Jews by Flavius Josephus, and the Book of Enoch. So one of the things I like to do on this channel after I discuss a scripture in the Bible or an event that happened in the Bible or a character out of the Bible, one of the things I like to do at the end of the discussion is see if there's any proof. Because the proof is in the pudding, and the evidence behind these stories is, to me, what's most compelling. So, is there any evidence today to support the claims made in the three sources that talk about the sons of God or the sons of Seth? Turns out there is. So the Bible talks about how the sons of God slept with the daughters of men. Josephus goes into further detail and explains to you that these sons of God, he refers to them as the sons of Seth. And he gives you more detail as to what happened. The Book of Enoch, who gives you the names of at least 19 of these individuals, goes into the most detail. And it claims that on the summit of Mount Hermon, and we know where Mount Hermon is, it was so named Mount Hermon for the reason I'm about to disclose to you in 5 seconds. The reason this mountain was named Mount Hermon was because of the oath that was taken upon it by the descendants of the sons of God. These giant offspring of the sons of God swore an oath at the summit, at the highest peak of Mount Hermon. The Book of Enoch says that they bound themselves together by mutual imprecations, meaning we're all in this together. We're all guilty of what we're about to do, about what we're planning to do. See, this was an oath taken on a conscious decision to do something that they were fully aware was wrong. And they expected to be punished, and they were okay with that. Okay? Make sure we're all on the same page. They were about to do something very heinous. They knew that it was going to be very heinous, and they knew what the result would be, or at least that the result would be bad, and they still said, we're going to do it. So in 1869, a British explorer by the name of Sir Charles Warren went exploring investigating and excavating at the summit of Mount Hermon. He had a team with him. They went digging around, they went excavating, they went exploring. No doubt they knew the story of the sons of God, and no doubt they knew that they were at the right spot. Now, back then they didn't have cameras and GoPro, and they weren't afforded the technology in 1960s. They weren't afforded the technology that we, have the luxury and have at our disposal today. But good Sir Charles Warren did us a solid by drawing maps and diagrams of what he found and saw. So today Mount Hermon sits in northern Israel. It was a disputed territory. I believe Israel has control over it now. It once was in the territory of Lebanon. It's like right on the border of Israel, Lebanon, and Syria. But I believe Israel has control of it now. Anywho, Sir Charles Warren, here's a slide of a map here to show you where it is, how it's on the border of Israel, Syria, and Lebanon. So Sir Charles Warren found this big slab of rock, but it was too big for him to carry down from the summit of the mountain. So what he had to do was he ended up having to cut it in half just to transport it back with him. And this creepy looking slab of rock, I'm not sure how much it weighs, probably a couple tons, or at least a ton. But it's sitting somewhere in a museum, I don't know where, and it's got this ancient Greek script on it. It's in this ancient Greek language or letters that we couldn't decipher for a long time. Okay, the language that we couldn't decipher, this ancient Greek language, for a long time. But when we could,
he then discovered within the area a strange stele, which is a stone pillar, otherwise known as a tablet, engraved on one side in an ancient language, the closest being ancient Greek. It was then later inspected by scholars and translators, and the writing on the stone appeared to have a phrase they can make out, and it read this: "According to the command of the greatest and most holy God, those who take the oath proceed from here."
He said it read, "According to the Most High God, those who take the oath proceed from here." Is what he said it said. Or something close enough to that to where I can say I get it. As far as evidence to support the story of the sons of God, from the three sources that it comes from, as far as having evidence to support that, I rest my case. I'm not saying that's a smoking gun. What do I look like, an idiot? I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not a person that's easily moved or easily swayed or easily influenced about anything. I believe in science, math, facts. I'm an educated person. I'm not saying that to stroke my own ego. Many of you are. I don't abandon my education when I come across something that I don't understand. I apply it. So, when you come up with evidence like what Sir Charles Warren found, you have to take it for what it is. The book of Enoch tells a story that Josephus and the Bible agrees with. And it speaks about Mount Hermon, and Sir Charles Warren found a stone stela that had an oath, or what seemed to be an oath. And it seems to be legitimate as far as the dates in the translation. I rest my case. I want to thank you for joining me for this episode of Son of a Preacher Man. If you enjoy this type of content, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. If you got any compliments, comments, or insults, please leave them in the comment section. If you got any topics that you'd like me to discuss or questions you'd like me to answer, please leave it in the comments section. Otherwise, I'll see you same soap time, same soap channel. Soapman out.